Great. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Tina. Sorry, I didn't realise we were on. So professional.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice that people can see that we're normal.
Good to see you again, Tina. We're on our 41st key today, our 41st video. Now, anybody who wants to watch back on these can go and watch them on the YouTube channel, can't they, Tina?
They can go to YouTube or they can go to Facebook, either my Facebook page or which is Tina C. Hodges, or to YouTube would be the best place because you can see them on there.
Great. Well, and do join in. I hope that those of you who might be watching live might put some comments. We'll keep an eye out for those.
Great.
So we're getting there. The aim is to do 52 of these, and we're not far away from the end of that. And then we'll just have to think of something else to do, Tina, won't we?
I've already got a topic on mind. I'm going to keep stum about it just yet.
Great. Well, look forward to talking more about that. So as I said in the last video, these are 52 kingdom breakthrough keys. They are in relation mainly to financial breakthrough, but we're seeing as we talk, as we share in these videos, the application right across our lives. We want to be people who are achieving kind of breakthroughs in our lives that mean that we just become more free and more fruitful in following Jesus.
Yes.
Today we're going to be talking about being benevolent and not coveting. Tina, would you just kick us off with your thoughts about this?
Yes, absolutely. So I decided to go to Google and ask what Google thought coveting was. And Google thought that covetousness is greed, having or showing a great desire to possess something that may belong to somebody else. But benevolence, which is really the opposite of coveting, isn't just being kind, it's doing acts of kindness. It's doing good to people or giving aid to people. And so I looked at the different parts of really coveting, and there's being selfish. When you're coveting, you're being self-centered, aren't you? Well, being benevolent, you're being selfless. You're putting other people's needs before your own. And in Psalm 119, 36 to 37, it says, incline my heart to your testimonies and not to covetousness, which is, as the Amplified puts it, robbery, sensuality, and unworthy riches. And we don't want riches that are unworthy. We want them to come because we've worked for them. Power to get wealth is how the Lord has blessed us. In the main part of how we are to increase is he's given us power to get wealth. We don't want to be sensuous. We don't want to be covetous. We don't want to rob people. Neither do we want riches from unworthy sources. So we need to focus really on really the testimonies. This is how God works. God works these amazing ways. Let's focus on those. So, and it goes on to say, turn my eyes from beholding vanity, which is idols and idolatry, and restore to me vigorous life and health in your ways. So I think that that's a really good way of thinking about selflessness. We need to not be focused on ourselves. We need to be focused away from things like idols, and we need to focus on God and the way God operates, his nature, his values, the way he wants us to be as his children. And then in Philippians 2, 3 to 4, it says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Wouldn't you love more of that in the church? Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. But some people. We went on a conference recently. Well, we went on two, a weekend apart almost. One was a conference. Well, they were both conferences, but led by very different personality types. And some were very kind of very forthright and whatever, and others were very kind of gentle. And you know what? Uh, the fruit of the spirit I could see in both, but I tell you, there was a much better sense of others esteeming others as better than themselves in one of them,
Mm.
rather than one of the conferences was like, "Oh, and we know it all," and we have to keep that teachable, humble heart. Otherwise, we are going to be focused on selfish ambition. So, so that kindness, that benevolence, doing those acts of kindness, are coming really because we're coming across people who are in difficult situations, and we know that we want to love them in some way, to offer them help or support without expecting anything in return. So
Mm.
that's the kind of first thing I would say about it. Go on.
Yeah, and that whole not expecting anything in return is a real challenge to us, isn't it? And
Yeah.
because I think I think instinctively we do expect something, and we're very wired that way, aren't we? And so it's a real challenge to kind of to seek to live in not expecting something in return.
I think the reality is that Jesus says that when we give, we can't outgive God is pretty much it. So we do get something in return, but it's from heaven, not from earth.
Yeah.
And are we happy with God's returns and not man's returns, with God's blessings and not man's? More often we want the praise, we want the glory, we want the adoration, we want the, oh, aren't you wonderful? And that's not what God wants us to be, people of real substance, where people scratch us and what's underneath is even better.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether or not to take it as a compliment or an insult when people used to say to me, Tina, I never really liked you when I first met you, but as I've got to know you, I really love you. And I thought, I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult, but that's how we need to be. We have to be people of substance that, because oftentimes, they say first impressions count. And I think, what is it about first impressions with me that they don't like? But actually, it says as much about them as it does about me. I need to be approachable, but also, we need to not prejudge people based on appearance and things like that.
Mm.
And we need to be the kind of people that don't just talk the talk,
Mm.
but actually, when people look into our lives, they see actually they're really walking the walk.
Mm.
They must mean what they're preaching.
Mm.
And those are the qualities really that I think are important.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus says in Luke 6 about loving our enemies and doing good and lending. It's interesting how he puts enemies, doing good, and lending, hoping for nothing in return in the same sentence, isn't it? You know, you may get things in return, but they'll often come from your friends. They won't necessarily come from your enemies. But it says your reward will be great. So you can expect a return, but it goes on to say, and you will be sons of the Most High. So our reward is that way,
Mm.
not that way. We're
Mm.
getting it from God, our reward. We're not getting it from man. And
Yeah.
it says, for he is kind to the unthankful and the evil. Therefore, be merciful, just as your Father also is merciful. But it's not just the outward action of being merciful, it's asking God, Lord, help me to see them through your eyes. Help me to understand their life
Mm.
from from what you can understand, because actually from where I am, I'm absolutely clueless. How on earth could they this, that, or the other? But actually give me compassion for them is really what that's about. So that
Yeah.
we are a blessing like God is to those who are evil or unthankful.
Mm.
And I think that's often when you see someone's really got it, because much, as you want to, pick up your ball and go home, as we often say in our culture, or some people might say, shake the dust off your feet and walk. And Jesus didn't just mean that when he went. What he was saying was, don't be talking to people before they're ready. There are people who are more ready if they aren't welcoming and drinking from a fire hydrant as you're speaking. If they're not lapping it all up, you're not going to curse them. You're just going to leave them.
Yeah.
They'll probably be ready further down the line. They're not ready yet.
Yeah.
There's other people who are ready now. Get on with that, is what he's about. So we really need to embody that mercy. We need to be, asking God, how can I love my enemies? How can I do good and lend to people who haven't even got my back? Well, what happens is God can change their hearts through
Yeah.
our actions. It's
Yeah.
one of the ways that we witness to people. Sometimes our families will think we're nuts. I've had my children say to me at times, why on earth have you this, that, and the other? And it's because it was, for me, the right thing to do. It's what God would do. That's how I know it's the right thing to do. I might not have an example of other people doing that, but if God would do it, I want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm his daughter first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's my identity.
Yeah.
And I don't need my identity in other things. I need it in God. So that also means that we're actively listening to people. We're empathizing with their struggles. I don't know how people who don't know Jesus get through life. Do you? Haven't got a clue. I mean, you hear some of the tragic stories, and honestly, I could sit there and weep. And I think how they're being stolen from left, right, and center. There's all these blessings that God has got for them that he wants to shine down on them. And they're in a thunderstorm away from the sunshine, not able to experience the blessings of God. And, Galatians talks about bearing with each other's weaknesses. How are we doing that? How are we actively doing that? Are we able, for example, to forgive and let go of
Yeah.
grudges? And are we letting them eat us alive? Are we being resentful about it? Because I actually think we need to let go, because these things weigh us down, as well as they may weigh others down. They may not. Other people may not know about them. I once said to a bishop, "I forgive you." Sounds a bit odd, but he had been so harsh, and so there was a lack of compassion in him over a particular situation. And he looked at me as if to say, he hadn't got a clue. And I've learned from that, don't go around telling bishops that you forgive them. You don't need to tell anybody that you forgive them. Just forgive them from your heart. But the problem was I was treating, that comes on to my next point. We need to treat everyone the same. We need to treat them with respect and dignity, no matter what their status is, no matter what their background is.
Yeah.
And that's what it says in Matthew 7:12. Treat others as you like to be treated. I don't want people to put me on a pedestal, but I'd like them to honor me and treat me with respect, and I'll treat them with respect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I think some more to say on this, if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, go on, because I haven't got any prompt questions. So you carry on.
That's fine. So in Romans 12:10, it talks about loving each other with brotherly affection. I remember saying to my brother recently, he was asking me to do something, and he said, I'll pay you to do it. I said, you don't need to pay me to do it. You're family. And I said, we're family. And so, brotherly affection means we don't count the cost. And it goes on to talk about outdoing one another in showing honor. Do we really try to outdo one another in showing honor? I don't see that much in the church. Do you? I mean, don't get me wrong. I see it increasingly in my own network, and I'm sure you do. But in the wider church, that's not the message that comes over, and we want to see people outdoing one another and giving generously to those in need. That's another way of being benevolent, is that if people have a need of time, of resources, or emotional support, we need to give generously.
Mm.
And, it's interesting how I often say to people, most people don't think about the debt they have until it comes to Sunday morning and it comes to putting something in the collection plate. And then they remember, oh, but I owe this and I owe that, so I can't put much in. Well, you're not thinking about that when you're signing up for another month of whatever on your television or whatever. we need to we need to be mindful that God has given generously to us
Yeah.
so that we are a conduit, we're a river, we're not just a reservoir.
Yeah.
In fact, Jesus goes as far as to say, be generous, but do it without the need to announce it. In other words, do it secretly. And he says in another part, this is in Matthew 6, I think, he says in another part, if you announce it, you've already had your reward. So you're not going to get your heavenly blessing in the same way. It's just telling everybody about it, you know. Oh, I went this place and we fed this many people, and don't get me wrong, it's great to have a food cupboard, and I'm sure you have to do a certain amount of teaching so that people know where their blessing and their giving is going. But if we've got that kind of, aren't I wonderful, this is what I'm doing, that's not being generous to the needy in a secret way, is it?
No, it's
You
not
know,
benevolent at all. It's the opposite of
it
that.
is. It's like, hey, look at me, aren't I wonderful?
Yeah.
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 And Proverbs says, when you're kind to the poor, you're lending to the Lord. Now, there's worth thinking about. Next time you pass someone who's poor, and in Proverbs 19, I think it is, then you're lending to the Lord. So we need to have that generous heart, like you said, not expecting anything in return, and a genuine compassion to see people's suffering relieved.
Yeah.
We'll have to have that, don't we?
Yeah. And there's a real challenge with confronting the covetous nature of our covetous kind of ways of thinking,
Yeah.
in impulses almost, because we
Yes.
do look jealously at other things and
Yeah.
desire things that are not ours to have.
Well, speak for yourself. No, I'm not speaking. I know you say. I know you're saying it on behalf of
I'm saying
people,
that,
but
that's
I'll
right.
often
I'm saying,
say,
yeah, that's right.
you know,
We humanly will function like that.
yeah, yeah, we will. And the thing is, we have to fight it.
Yeah.
We have to fight it. It is a battle. It's a battle not just of our mind, but of our core, because we're limiting God when we allow ourselves to get into jealousy and covetousness and stuff. We're limiting God and what he can do through us. Sometimes God may have us give away the very thing that we've coveted. And in fact, as part of my repentance, and I'm thinking back a long time ago now, when I really wanted something and I knew I coveted it and it came to me and I thought, I can't keep it.
Mm.
I can't keep it. Well, Lord, who do you want me to give it to?
Mm.
Because it burned in me,
Yeah.
because it came about through the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, we need to, when something comes to us, well deserved, I've worked hard, or yeah, it's something that's been a blessing, an inheritance from a family member or something. It's different, but I don't want things that come in a bad way. I remember my mum used to do the lottery. She doesn't now because I oversee her financial affairs, bless her. But she used to do the lottery and she'd say, oh, when I get £1 million, I'll give you half. And I used to say to her, Mum, I don't want half if you have £1 million, because at the time I was working, standing in a post office behind, women who had hardly any shoes on their feet that were spending £20 back then, 20 years ago, £20 on lottery tickets. And I'm thinking, I'd rather you went and bought some shoes for your feet. But their hope was in the desire to get lots of money. So not just they could get out of debt, but their family could get out of debt. But
Mm.
I had to persuade my mum, don't do it for me.
Mm.
Do it, your money needs to be spent on you. And
Mm.
you're more likely to get your toilet paper back from flushing the toilet than you are to win the lottery. That's what I used to say to. Sorry, I know it's a bit, but
Good
that doesn't,
way of
because
putting it.
God's going to bless you anyway. If you're a believer, if you believe in Jesus, you've invited him into your heart, you've given your life to Christ, and he's born again in you, you are going to get blessed till your socks fall off if you continue reading the Bible and getting to know God.
Yeah.
But we have to cover, don't we? We have to watch over those who are weaker in faith so
Yeah.
that we can help them with the things that they may be struggling with.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is we need to be united. Now that is a not popular thing to talk about. So it means open-minded. You see verses in the Bible that talk about being open-minded and accepting of Christians who believe different things than you do. Now, so in the Bible, the hot topic was, about what, could you eat food that was sacrificed to idols? But the hot topics of our own these days, which I won't go into. But hang on, let's not condemn someone who's weaker in faith, as the Bible puts it, nor look down on them. Let's remember that God has welcomed that person and blessed them and ask God to continue to bless them to grow. Because we're not, as the Bible says, there to judge people.
Yeah.
Not at this point. They're master of their own house, really,
Yeah.
and God is the one that's ultimately
Yeah.
blessing them and who's going to judge them. So unity is important in this, so that we're not just being kind. So that means we can work with other churches, other organizations, to bless people, even though they may not believe as we do.
Yeah.
So because either there's a true, now some people, there isn't a true compassion to bless, they're doing it to get a way in so that they can proselytize, so they can push their view of God on people. That's not where we're supposed to be benevolent from. It's supposed to come from compassion.
No, that's benevolent dictatorship.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well, thank you, Tina. That's been really good. I hope that those of you who've been joining in online with us have found that helpful and challenging. We look forward to joining you again with our next key as we make our way through the 40s to the final 50, the final one of our 52. So thanks very much, Tina.
Thank you,
See
Mark.
you soon.
Yeah, indeed. Take care. God bless.